What up, former party people? It's me, Jerry, the bipedal one from the A is for Alcoholic podcast. Now, if you're finding value in listening to the AIFA podcast every week and you want to support sharing it with others, then we invite you to become a sustaining monthly or per show contributor. Go to patreon.com/AIFA. It's super easy and it only takes a quick moment. It's about as easy as buying a pre-cooked chicken from the grocery store, taking it outside, giving it a big old kiss, and kicking it into traffic. Why would you do that? Anyway, you do you, and I'll do me. Again, go to patreon.com/AIFA. Okay, let's start the show.
A is for Alcoholic is a program about recovery. My name is John, and I'm an alcoholic.
And my name is Jerry, and I'm an alcoholic.
Join us as we go through the alphabet of alcoholism, one letter at a time. How do you feel about the Safeway LaCroix or the Safe Refreshe versus LaCroix? Do you care?
Same thing. It's like literally the same thing, yeah. I put a little stevia in it. Sometimes I'll mix it with some sugar-free root beer because I feel adventurous.
So you cut the sugar-free root beer with the club soda, with the Safeway Select?
If I didn't, I'd be on like 5 root beers, 6 root beers a day. Like, I love soda.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I drink sugar-free sodas. But this one, the root beer is stevia instead of the all those fucking cancer chemicals.
Right.
I still drink the cancer chemical ones too, though.
Well,
that's my little joy, man. My little bubbly joy.
You should enjoy it. Right? I'm a lemon LaCroix. I don't know.
I like LaCroix because I like to say I'm a LaCroix boy. Especially when I'm around other people who are drinking alcohol. I'm like, oh, you like beer? I'm a LaCroix boy.
You should get that tattooed. Will that fit on my knuckles?
LaCroix boy. I don't know. We can make one of the knuckles. Jam that shit on there. I don't give a fuck.
I got an 8-pack of some Canada Dry, and it just wasn't very good, and it wasn't the same. It didn't have the same flavor. I was a little disappointed.
They should just stick to the ginger ale game, man. I don't know why they're trying to branch out, man. They should just stick to that ginger ale game. Did you drop a cat?
Something happened.
Yeah.
Oh, so speaking of which, I forgot we're doing a podcast here.
Yeah. About sobriety, recovery.
Yes, sobriety, recovery, all that good stuff. Yeah. Real quick, outside from the sparkling water debate, which we'll probably tackle in a later episode. We ask that you rate and review us, please. I would love for you to go on wherever you listen to us and give us a 5-star rating, and a few kind words goes a long way to help us get heard by more people.
Absolutely.
Once again, and as always, we are brought to you by Green Camel Press. Green Camel Press is a design firm with an old school aesthetic in a digital age. It is the other work that I do outside of the many other things that I do. And we design all kinds of cool stuff. So if you are interested, we just got the t-shirts. They're in the trunk of my car. I'll get those up on the website, greencamelpress.com. And you can check us out on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Although there's not a lot of tweeting. I don't really mess with the Twitter too much. It's usually just connected to the Instagram, which is where all of our artwork and stuff is.
Yeah.
It's almost Valentine's Day. So by the time this comes out, I hope you guys all had a good Valentine's Day and everything was well, whether you were alone for Galentines or Lonely Tines or whatever.
Galentines?
It's basically, I think, if I understand it correctly, and please, anybody out there, correct me if I'm wrong, it's for single women who just want to spend time with their gals.
Never heard of this. That's rad. Yo, you ladies get out there. Go bowling.
Go bowling. Do people bowl? Yeah. Is that bowling alley still down the road from you?
Oh, no, it burnt down.
That's right. I wasn't bringing that up as a joke. I couldn't remember.
No. Oh. Yeah. I was thinking of what a bunch of single gals could do. They probably do a lot of other stuff too. I imagine they do stuff single men do. I don't know. Anyway.
But so today on the program, the letter G, And we were going to discuss G is for the grace of God, as in there, but for the grace of God go I. Word. And if you don't know what this means, just real quick, it was a guy who, I think his name was John Bradford, and it's a paraphrase of something he said back in the 1500s as he was watching a bunch of prisoners get walked up to the gallows. Mm-hmm. And which shortly thereafter he was burned at the stake, but it still stands as saying, you know, it's often used, and I think in the framing of recovery and alcoholism, in seeing somebody who's in the midst of it, who's either in a lot of pain, drinking, somebody who's worse off, or somebody who you say you hear about somebody who went to prison for something, and you're like,
right. Mm-hmm.
There, but for the grace of God go I, because, I mean, how many times Jerry, have you been in a situation that could have gone 180 degrees worse than it did?
Yep.
You know,
all the time.
All the time.
Every time. 99%.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think about that a lot when I another quote in the similar vein that Anthony Hopkins says. He says, "Life isn't fair. If life were fair, I'd be dead."
Yeah.
And so,
what's up, Anthony Hopkins?
I know.
That's dope. Yeah.
He's got a great one. You can find his speaker discussion meeting on YouTube, and if you haven't listened to that one, he's really, really good.
Yeah, he's a charming dude.
But the idea is that, you know, to have a little bit of humility, right?
Yeah.
We go into this, and I think in early recovery, you know, I had a period where I was super excited and I was super stoked, and I want to you want to share it with everybody, right? And you wanna,
yeah, damn.
And not everybody wants to hear that shit.
No, most of them don't give a shit. They don't know you. They're like, great.
Yeah, that's great. You know,
you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Wow, high five.
Or I'm gonna go to the bar and get drunk. I don't need to hear about your business, you know.
Yeah.
And so, not necessarily being all high and mighty about it. I did my best, and I learned that lesson pretty quick. And another friend of mine who still drinks, and I remember meeting up with him for lunch or something like that, because we wouldn't go out drinking anymore. And he's like, you know, John, I just want to say that I appreciate you not being in my face all the time about it. You've been very good about keeping quiet about, you know, being in recovery and the program and sobriety. And it's, you know, it was something that really stuck with me. Like, okay, so this is not for me to just go hopping around and sharing with everyone and getting so excited and, gosh, don't you understand? And, you know, even in my head, I'd be like, dude, everybody needs this. Are you kidding me? Yeah. How come the world is not doing this?
Yeah.
And, you know, now I realize that that's not the way that it works.
No. Although everybody does need it. You just don't say it out loud. You just keep it in your head because nobody wants to hear that shit. But, yeah. Yeah, I think it would be helpful. But, yeah, I'm with you. You know what I look at it as? And this is funny because every time I've been to a meeting and the topic of humility comes up, I go through the same loop as well, and I hear it very commonly where people will try to reach for the concept of being humble. And it always kind of didn't turn me off, but it kind of made me think, because I was like, well, this isn't about humility and being humble. Yeah, they're kind of hand in hand, but I think the humility more is like a really valuable tool. Like I'm completely self-centered, so it was very hard for me to not come from a place where I felt better than at one period of time. And I think I started looking at it more as, well, how can I have more humility about it and have it be beneficial to me because I'm self-centered. So I started using it at the same route as playing the tape back or playing the tape forward. Whereas I would see someone who was really fucking up in their life, and instead of coming from this place of judgment and saying, well, you know, if you knew better, I would more be like, that's me, dude. Like, that's how it can get for me if I keep fucking around, and that's how it will get for me if I keep fucking around.
It's a reminder.
A reminder. So it was very self-centered at first, and then it kind of naturally is like that fake it till you make it aesthetic they say a lot in the program. became my skin instead of a shirt I was wearing eventually, where I was like more felt empathy for the other person than I felt like, oh, that could be me. I mean, it's still there in my head. I'm like, yeah, but for the grace of God, man, if I had made like, if I had decided to, not to get sober, if I had decided to not get sober, I absolutely would have been in that car, or I absolutely would be fucking yelling at my family right now or whatever, Yeah. I looked off because there was someone screaming downstairs at a dog or something.
It's
and
okay.
I was like, there but for the grace of dog, go I, dude.
There but for the grace of dog, go I.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's I think of it too like that. Like you said, that idea of it being a tool, and it evolves. So you're handed this, when you decide to get sober and you find somebody to help you in whatever sort of mentorship and sponsorship situation, and they show you different ways of living, right? And so you kind of use them even if you don't actually feel it. And I know that when I was drinking and I would look at people who were worse than me, I would be like, Jesus, at least I'm not that person. Ugh,
right.
That sort of. So I would look at them in disgust almost.
Right. I was totally there.
And relief. Like, ugh. And nowadays, when I see somebody, when I can tell if somebody's like in pain or suffering, or even, here's a good example of a fictional character, but one of my favorite television shows, and I think yours, at least in the past, was the Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
And one of my absolute favorite characters, and one of my favorite characters to quote, was Mr. Leahy.
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know this, it was Mr. Leahy was a trailer park police officer, I guess is the best way.
He was the supervisor. He was the manager and supervisor, but he was also the security guard.
So, and just real quick, and it was the late John Dunsmore. Is that Dunsworth? Dunsmore?
Dunsworth, I think. Yeah.
Dunsmore.
Dunsworth.
So yeah, it's one of those. But so he's an amazing actor, and he passed away, and he's really awesome. But so Mr. Leahy was this raging, sloppy, just horrific drunk who was hurtful and mean to everybody around him, who was constantly destroying everything around him. I think there's a character arc in the show where he gets sober for a minute. But I remember after I got sober, being excited that another season was coming out, and you and I had this conversation and watching it, and I didn't find him funny anymore.
No.
Like it was
it made me sad.
Yeah.
It fucked me up. It's John Dunsworth. I just looked it up on my magic phone box. But rest in peace, dog. But yeah, that shit, it fucked me up. When I was drinking, it was hilarious because there was so much relatable shit. And then when I got sober, it was sad because there was so much relatable shit. You know what I mean? I was like, God damn, dude, this dude, all the fucking buffoonery was hilarious, when I was crocked up. And then when I wasn't, I felt more empathy than anything. It just was too uncomfortable. It was like looking in a mirror after that. I was like, wow, that's absolutely me. Holy shit. I don't like that. And I think that is a lot of that grace there before the grace of God kind of shit,
Where I could have been there. Or I have been there, what I can remember.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that it's just... that was just an interesting reminder to me, in that when you see this stuff and the way that your mind changes, the way that your brain shifts, and like you said, the empathy and feeling that sort of like, God, that person's in pain and that person's suffering.
Yeah,
it's not really funny when somebody's stumbling around drunk in the middle of the day, or when somebody's being too loud in a restaurant because they're drinking and they're boisterous and they're this, and you're like, there's something wrong there, and it's not necessarily, but I could be there, and I have been there.
Right.
And I think that one thing that can be helpful is going into some kind of service, and I'm not even talking about sponsorship or anything like that. I'm certainly not talking about going up to people who are drunk and saying, hey,
giving him a big book or something.
Yeah, no.
Just
But for me, it's like, how can I help people in everyday life. And it doesn't have to be involved in somebody's sobriety, but, you know, whether it be helping somebody out in line at the grocery store, or somebody needs your assistance, or, you know, there was a woman one time and this old lady was trying to move this bicycle out of the road because she couldn't get by, and I was coming by and she was having a hell of a time. And so I was like, can I help you with that? And just get the bicycle out of the road, and thank you. And she drove on, and just do those little things that are going to help ease people's days, you know. And you said you're self-centered. I mean, or you were self-centered. Do you feel like you still are?
Absolutely, yeah. But I feel like, but it constantly, it fluctuates now. Mm-hmm. It's not like, it's hard to describe. I'm not as self-centered as I was, but I'm still as self-centered as I was in some ways and others, you know. There are ways where I do things that are very self-serving, and then afterwards look at them and go, fuck, man, that was my motivator there. Now, if something good came out of it, well, then bonus for them, but I'm going to have to sit down and think about, like, what was my motivation in doing that thing? Was it, do you know what I'm saying? But then that brings up the whole thing about altruism and whether or not we do things for other people to make them feel better or make ourselves feel better. But I can honestly say sometimes I do nice things because I know that I will get the dopamine hit for it, or I'll feel like a good person. And yeah, they win, but if my intentions aren't true, does that make the act untrue, you know?
I mean, that's a bigger
that's philosophy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I think that when it comes to my recovery and well, I mean, I wanted to ask you, do you think that would your wife and your kids say that you're self-centered?
It depends on what it is, but yeah, yes and no.
No,
I would think that, you know, there are things I do because they need to get done, and I know that if they get done, they're for the betterment of all of us, that are completely apart from what is in my best interests. And then there are things that I do where I'll manipulate a situation so I can play video games more, or something stupid like that. You know what I'm saying? But I think their perception of it is, they're like, I know for sure my daughter doesn't think about, like, oh, dad's just doing that because he wants to eat more chips than me or whatever. But, you know, I know that yes, I think they would say that I am cool, that I'm not a self-centered asshole.
Yeah, well,
I think this is all internal stuff, to be honest with you.
Well, and that's kind of my point, is that we often do it to ourselves, inside of ourselves, and
that's what it is, right? Yeah, because no one's looking at you, no one gives a shit.
You know, if somebody were to ask your wife, you know, genuinely in confidence, like, is Jerry a good husband? I don't think that she would say anything but yes.
Yeah,
you know, or is he a good dad? She would say yes. You know,
better. God damn it.
So it's and back to the question of philosophy. In sobriety, I don't think it really matters, man. I mean, as long as everybody wins.
Word. Exactly.
And I mean everybody, because you can't. I mean, I can't go around manipulating people, and and I'm very good at it. You know, I'm very good at, how do I word something? What is the end results? How do I make them feel good or special? Or if I'm like, so I really need to get Jerry to do this drawing for me, and I know he's going to say he doesn't want to. And like, so how do I bring it up? And how do I bring it up kindly? And so I don't know if that's manipulation rather than just trying to, but I'm also trying to get an end result, and I want to make you feel good to get what I want.
Well, I think that's just good business acumen, dude, honestly.
Is it?
Getting me to do anything and being like, hey, this will benefit you, and me being like not jaded about it, that's some fucking gymnastics right there. Because I am resistant at fucking
I spent a lot of time looking at the text message, like, what is that?
What does that mean? And usually it's just me sitting there eating chips being like, yeah, John, okay, cool. Or, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, I got it. All right. And then just go back to eating chips, like, man, I should really be doing this shit.
But yeah, there's a genuine, I think, as far as not manipulating people into getting what you want, and actually just forgetting about yourself and helping somebody else. There but for the grace of God go I. Is there somebody who needs your service, your help? And just doing that thing, for me, it's I won't say all the time, but it becomes more and more instinctual. Like, what do I have? What do I have to do? What do I really have to do? How important is my life today that I can't stop and help somebody? And it feels better. And it instantly, you know, I mean, if you think about it, there's tons of benefits. It instantly gets you out of your own head.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about your bills or your problems or even if you're just listening to somebody else talk about their problems. Like, oh, okay, so I'm out of my head. They feel relief. They feel gratitude. They feel, again, the next time you may or may not need something, want something, or be in some sort of distress, they're going to feel inclined to help you. So whether or not you should do something good just to do it.
Yeah.
When I helped that lady with the bike, that was like, I don't know, months ago. And I don't think I told anybody until just now. And I was kind of just using it as an example. Yeah. But it felt really good. Like she was struggling. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can get that. There's absolutely no reason. I got nothing else to do today that I can't stop and help this old woman because some fucking little punk left his BMX in the alleyway.
Yeah.
So
little punk.
I think it's just a way of looking at the world and looking at people and instead of immediately, I don't know about you, but I often will get angry very easily. I'm quick to judgment still. That's not something.
Yeah. Absolutely, I am. I make a conscious effort to not verbalize that judgment, though.
Yes.
It's all baby steps, dude. That's the thing about dealing with recovery and trying to learn a new way to live is it's all baby steps. You're not, if you're out there listening, you think like you're going to have this huge sea change overnight. Like it's not going to work like that. Just be patient. It takes time. Sometimes it goes from saying it out loud to saying it less out loud to saying it internally to saying it less internally to the point where you just don't even think about it. You're just like, oh, that person's going through some hard shit. That sucks for them, what can I do to make them better? Or maybe I should just avoid them entirely, yeah. But it takes time.
It does. It really, really does. And, that idea of this epiphany, and there are it does happen every once in a while, but they talk about spiritual growth. Like there's this, okay. So the idea of but for the grace of God go I implies that our fate is in something bigger.
Right. I was thinking about this. Right. Yeah.
So it implies that, and whatever that is of your design, that's fine. So, we use the word God a lot because it's a place marker that we can all use and we all know what we're talking about. But I don't have the same conception of God that you do or that anybody else out there listening does. And some people may not at all. But that idea that we're giving it up to something else. Like I could have been a lot worse off. I could have been in jail and I wasn't, and I should be grateful for that. Right. And there was grace given to me by something, whether it's the cosmos or luck or fate or a fucking big bear or an invisible man or woman in the sky. Yeah. So I just try to find ways for me to help other people, and I think that's one of the best ways that I can alleviate, any sort of, I don't want to say stress is not the right word. I guess anxiety around sobriety for me. I don't know that I deal with the specifics of early sobriety anymore as far as itching for a drink or
the immediacy is gone. Right.
I don't, but when I talk to somebody when somebody's fresh or new, or when somebody who I know is wants to call me up and just calls me out of the blue, and I don't ever like to answer the phone for people, for strangers, for whatever, I mean, that's nobody does anymore. But this happened the other day, and they called me out of the blue, and I was like, oh, of course I'll answer. Absolutely. I'll answer. And it was great. And I listened to this person, a friend of ours, and she talked to me for like 45 minutes and was just super excited and was just feeling great about it. And I was happy that I could be there and that I was the one that, called her up, or that I was the one that she chose to call
answered, right. Yeah. That's great. The God word is always. I was thinking about this today too, about this subject and the God word, because it's a placeholder, and sometimes I don't regret it, but I don't know if the resent's the right word either. I just feel uncomfortable with it sometimes as a placeholder. You know, like sometimes I wish, like within this program or whatever we're, with this thing that we're using to help ourselves recover, I wish they could have thought of a different word for it. Sometimes, because when I was drinking, and yeah, if I called you fucking sobbing and bummed out because I'm been fucked forever, and you were like, yo, you gotta find God, I'd be like, all right, later, dude. Like, I don't need to be having this conversation with you anymore because you're fucking a weirdo. But to me, it was a lot of surrender, that God thing. It was a lot of letting go. The uncertain. I like the uncertain better now. The uncertain bear, or whatever it is. It's just the uncertainty, right? So there before the grace of uncertainty, and then the grace is just like the chance of uncertainty. But it's also thinking about like common math, like 2 and 2 is 4. Like you never get this. I'm going down this weird path.
Please,
but you'll never get nothing before with 2 and 2, despite what the dude from that pimp movie says. But do you know what I'm talking about? He went crazy.
No.
He was trying to prove that 2 and 2 was like 5 or some shit. Anyway, that's another weird tangent. You always get the same result doing the same thing over and over again. And, you keep doing that same thing over and over again, you get the same result. And you see this other person doing that same thing you were doing, getting that same result. You're like, fuck. If I go back to doing that math that guy's doing, I'm always going to get that same number 4, So if I kind of leave it up to the uncertain and kind of surrender all this shit instead of trying to keep fucking controlling it, do you know what I mean? Like, eventually I'll find a better path. That is like a weird roundabout way of saying just let it go.
Let it go.
Like Elsa, yeah. Like Frozen, man. You got Frozen in it. But we've said this before. But
that was a clue on Jeopardy. They got Jeopardy on Netflix now. It's awesome.
Yeah, they do. I haven't watched it. Yeah, I loved it.
You'll get hooked.
But yeah,
it's so well. And were you raised religious at all? Was there any sort of
yes and no, but we were raised Roman Catholic, right? But it was that kind of Catholicism where my mom's Mexican and my dad's a Italian dude who grew up an altar boy. So like Catholicism was just in our life as kids, but it was less of a spiritual way of living and more of just like, this is what we do. My parents didn't find, they converted to Episcopalianism after my father got sober, because his sponsor was a Episcopalian priest. My dad had the same sponsor for like almost 30 years, man. Those dudes are homies. And my father still attends church regularly. My mom goes with them because she likes the spirituality aspect of it. But I wouldn't say that we didn't say grace before dinner. You know what I mean? Like Christmas was just when Santa Claus came.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, I went to some midnight masses and they were fucking crazy as fuck. But yeah, Easter was just the bunny. There was none of this. There wasn't a lot of heavy Jesus talk around my home. So we weren't very religious. Yeah.
Yeah. Me neither. It was not anything that was sort of instilled, and I asked that because we have these. We both had a very strong aversion toward God,
right.
And I feel like for me, some of that came from the shitty childhood. So, excuse me. And so when the shitty childhood comes up, and when adults that you trust treat you horribly, and then when you start to you develop this concept of God, and you develop this concept of what might be a higher power and an afterlife and all the other weirdness that comes with that, you start to go, well, if there's a God, why would he let this happen? Why would this be? Why do you know what happened to me today? Why would that be allowed to exist? So there can't be one. And if there is one, then he hates me. Yeah. And so then you start getting this internal monologue. I had this in my head for years about either he doesn't exist, or he hates me, or both somehow. And fuck that. And I'm not going to believe in that. And going into, getting sober, I was like, I don't get it, man. I don't know what you want me to do, but
right,
there's nothing there. And that has changed in that there's a presence, right? There's a feeling, there's a, I don't have a name for it, but coincidences, what's the quote about coincidences? I don't know, but some things are just not coincidences. There's too many of them.
Right. Yeah.
Too many of them happen in a row. And little by little, baby steps, that idea of just cracking that door open a little bit, just a little bit. And,
Right.
like somebody said, are you willing to believe? Or do you believe? No. Are you willing to believe? Yes, I would love to.
If it'll get me out of this hole, yeah, sure, why not, dude? Yeah.
So I think that in that sort of by the grace of God go I. I'm able to look at somebody else and say that this thing that I've given myself up to, this feeling, this presence, this bigger than me, whatever that is, however you want to picture that, is able to save me or to allow me to give me the tools to do the work myself, then, I mean, I could have easily been somewhere else. And so I guess I believe in God now.
Yeah.
I guess so. I think so. I mean, it's when I look at all the gifts that, that come around, there's another G word for next time.
Season 3 gifts.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what are my other options? I did it myself. That doesn't feel.
Yeah, right. And I remember people telling me that too. Like, what do you, man, this is all you and your willpower. And I'm like, we're past fucking willpower, dude. Like, but I'd like to say though, like, I came into recovery as a hardcore a hardcore atheist. Like, I was like, there is nothing out there. And, in almost over 4.5 years now, I would say I'm a hardcore agnostic. You know what I mean? I don't have evidence either way. I have evidence of some things, but I don't have enough evidence of anything. I believe in the power, like I said, of the power of the uncertain. So for me, it's not faith in God. It's more like I am a believer in the uncertain. And if the uncertain decides that this is it, then this is it, I mean, I guess that's maybe my fancy word for it.
Yeah.
So
good.
I think on my end, I'm more agnostic than a true, like a believer, but then shit happens and I'm like, whoa, that's fucking hanky. Like you're talking about the coincidences. I'm like, well, that's a little too much, man. I mean, I used to be scared of ghosts. How the fuck am I not gonna be like, I ain't got no higher power? But then if I hear something in my house in the middle of the night, like I'm not gonna get, goosebumps. I'm gonna think ghost before I think intruder.
Are you still scared of ghosts?
Sometimes, man, they're scary as fuck, dude.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I mean, yes and no. No, see, this is a G for ghosts, right? But yeah, this is like one of those other things where, like, I was totally raising my mom, be like, "There's ghosts. Be careful. Be careful. There's ghosts."
But did she give you any like other information? Just be careful. Just run.
Don't do this. Don't do dumb shit. Ghosts will come get you. Shit like that. I grew up with cucuys and la lloronas and shit. So there's always a supernatural entity that wanted my ass for some reason.
Can you explain for our listeners what cucuy is?
Oh, right. The cucuy is like a Mexican boogeyman. He doesn't really look like anything. He isn't really anything in particular. He's not like a scarecrow or a ghost he's just a boogeyman in general. Like, don't touch that. The cucuy's going to come and get you. And then what does he do? And I'd be like, well, what is he going to do when he gets me? And they're like, kill your fucking ass, stupid. Like, you're going to die. And then you'll be a ghost and hang out with the cucuy. Right? And then La Llorona is the Mexican folklore story. You should look it up on Wikipedia. It's scary as hell. But it's basically a woman who stands in the river crying in, like, riverbeds and arroyos because she threw her kids in the river and drowned them. And the story is basically, like, don't play in the wash. Don't play in the arroyo because the flash flood will drown your ass. But kids are dumb. They don't have that concept. But they're afraid of ghosts. So if you're like, don't go near the river, a ghost will get your ass. You're like, all right, I'm not going in the river. But for me, yeah, it was... There's tons of contradictions in my life. I think there's tons of contradictions in everybody's lives. So for me, I'm like, okay, supernatural shit might exist, but then what? Am I going to sit here and be like, I don't believe in fucking God, but ghosts?
So what you're saying is your belief in ghosts perhaps maybe helped crack the door to God a little bit?
In some sense. Well, right now, I just had this breakthrough now with this podcast. Yeah, it wasn't like something I did some step work and went, oh, shit, that's it. Like it just happened right now.
Well, no, that's why I really love. I mean, Jerry and I do minutes of exhaustive research for every show,
exactly.
but the whole point is that I love having these conversations with you where it's like, why are we talking about ghosts in the river? And that ghosts, your superstition from childhood, opens up the idea of that there might be a god.
Like I'm afraid to swim at night, but I'm really resilient to just letting my problems go and having some thing take care of them.
Yeah, I think mine's mostly it's all the wildlife around here where I live, and yeah, I mean I don't like to watch scary movies at night and creep myself out or anything, but there's just always like I hear cats and the fucking deer and owls and and I don't know what this means, and if anybody out there listening can help me figure this out, like about animal totems, and I kind of believe in that the spirit of the forest and stuff seems to it makes sense to me. I feel it. So the other night I was at work and it was a long night at work and it wasn't, I was waiting tables and tending bar and it wasn't a great night and it was pretty slow and I just wasn't feeling it and I was just tired and I was driving home and I drive through the country in the dark and it's about like a 25-minute drive, 30-minute drive. And I'm driving this windy little road, and I could have taken the other road, but I didn't. And from the bushes, from the darkness, jumps out this skunk. And I had no time to react. I had no time to turn the wheel, nothing. It was just there. I saw it, and I kind of froze. And then it was like, I think I had time to think, do I put it under the wheel, or do I let it go, do I try to get it under the car?
Right.
And in that thought, it just already went under the wheel, and it's like I saw his little face, and then I ran him over, and it was awful. So, and I was feeling super sad about it, right? Because I don't want to kill a skunk. I mean, I know they're stinky,
man.
but it was just like that pop. It was just felt like a pop, underneath the tire, and it was so. And then it's a skunk, and I had to drive another 30 minutes with the smell. Like it had just
on your tires,
on my tires, yeah, and it was. So I don't know. I had, and the other night this owl flew in front of the car too. So I've been nighttime wildlife has been in my purview.
All you spiritualists hit Johnny up here. This is how a Netflix horror movie starts. The beginning of a Netflix horror movie is two guys on a podcast because it's 2019. Leads into a story about you running over fucking animals, and then the next thing you know, like
ghosts of the forest, spirits of the forest,
spirits of the. It'll be a big deer-headed sausage monster or something. Who knows?
But so I looked up skunk totems and are like what they mean, kind of. And one of the things is like walking. What did my girlfriend said? Like, I want to walk into the room like a skunk. And like you think, everyone laughs and says, "Oh, it's stinky." But when a skunk leaves the room, everybody knows that it's been there. So kind of like your energy radiates, rather than the funk.
Yeah.
It's like this idea that you leave this powerful energy wherever you go. And I was like, that's kind of cool. I don't know what it means that I ran it over.
Yeah.
It was just a heavy moment, man. It was a very heavy moment.
You could have just run over an animal too that wasn't paying attention.
There was just no time. I thought tire under car, and then at that point it was already too late, and it was just like that.
I think everybody was sad all around. That skunk probably be reincarnated as a badger or something. Then.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't really. I don't do well with those kinds of.
It's a life force. They'll go out and turn into a bunch of bees or something.
It took 2 days for that life force to leave my car. I'll tell you that much.
Poor fucking stinky animal.
But could you imagine if I had not been sober, or if I had been drinking and driving, and if I had decided to make a different turn, or to drive off the road, or into the fucking trees, or whatever. There's any number of things I could have made a horrible, slow, and very bad decision behind the wheel. Yeah. So I'm very grateful that everything went the way that it went, I guess, all things considered.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like having that empathy. What's the other word? service, and just reaching out to people and trying to think of others, right? And to not judge.
Right.
I think is probably...
Well, the judging's not going to help you anyway. You're just building resentments. And what do we do with resentments, man? We drink on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we want to break it down to brass tacks, the best way to fuel a fucking drunk is to have a bunch of resentment. And if you're judging, you're basically building resentment. So
yeah,
it just makes you feel shitty too. I feel shitty now when I think bad things about people.
Yeah, and it's kind
I don't feel power anymore. It doesn't feel powerful at all anymore. It feels like garbage. Like
yeah, it doesn't feel powerful. And even with, when we talked about TV shows and the media and the comedy that I used to find really funny, I don't know if this has changed for you at all, but sometimes I listen to stuff and I'm like, that just sounds kind of mean. I mean, I still like being sarcastic, and I still like to crack jokes on people and whatever, right. But it's sort of shifted my idea of what is funny. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm there with you.
Not everything, but there's just like certain things I watch and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't resonate to me. I'm more interested in, like, it's going to sound corny, but being like uplifted and inspired. I think that was one of the things that night when I was driving home. I was like, fuck, this job does not inspire me. I want to be inspired. When's the last time you were inspired, John? And it's like, fuck, it's been a minute. So I don't know.
And then you killed a skunk.
And then I killed a skunk. It was just it was a rough night, man. It was a rough night, but and then that skunk there, but for the grace of God go I, I have to be careful. Look where you're going.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Look where you're going out there, people. Watch out for them skunks.
Watch out for them skunks.
And them drunks.
Yes. Thanks again for listening. Our music, as always, is by Neglect. You can find more of his stuff at neglect.bandcamp.com.
And you can find us on all social media platforms that matter: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can reach us at aisforalcoholic@gmail.com.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.